But if I'm Gotham, I am giving her a lucrative contract to stay with the club because she is everything that you want your club to be.
The Summer Olympics start on July 26th. Emma Hayes not coming until May, which is roughly 2 months before they go to Paris, is a little bit concerning in the sense of how are they going to perform at the Olympics. But we got to think big picture, U.S. women's national team. What does their future look like? Who are they building to be?
Caroline's the MVP. I think she's the most deserving player.
Wait, we need to talk about this. Welcome back into Straight from the Pitch, joined as always by Scotty Schweitzer. I'm Anna Witte. It is the week after the NWSL Final. I know we weren't here last week. I got called to go to the actual game, so I didn't have time to edit the show, but we are here to recap it all. I stood pitch side during the match, so I wasn't able to see it from a bird's eye view where I could really break down the game, but I did see some of, the Megan Rapinoe injury and the celebration after, some of the stuff that happened before. I'll dive into that after Scotty kind of gives us a bird's eye view of what he saw in the match. We saw a goal from Lynn Williams, a goal from Astaire. Rose Lavelle had a goal for OL Reign, and then Midge Purce being the MVP of the evening, having the 2 assists on the goal. Who really had the upper hand throughout the match? It was really difficult to see because I stood behind one goal the entire time, and I felt like it was kind of back and forth.
It was. Like the first 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, it was a championship game. It was nerves. It was they weren't really sure. They were feeling each other out, but there was a lot of nervousness. There was a lot of nervous energy. The game was super sloppy early. It was like, man, I hope it gets better because this isn't good at all for what you knew was coming to a head basically with Krieger and Rapinoe.
Yeah.
But then once it settled down, Gotham got a hold of the game, and they got a hold of the game on the flanks, and they were able to do their business out on the flanks, and they were able to attack. And because they were able to attack on the flanks, they were also pressing Seattle back deeper. And then they got their goal, and then it seemed like they took their foot off the gas a little bit. And then they either were trying to rest or get their shape correct and then defend, and they thought maybe they can get to the half. And when that happened, it opened up the middle, and it let Rose Lavelle was good, man, real good. Once she got into the game and got the flow of the game and the tempo of the game, she started to dominate in the midfield. And luckily for Gotham, Seattle didn't really play through her. She kind of just kept finding the ball on her own and getting into the right spots, but they weren't force feeding her, which I think if they did would have helped their game out a little bit more. And then the second half started, and it looked like Gotham got their energy back. They got their spark back. They knew what they were in for. And again, then they just started to play their game, and they got a little bit more freedom than what OL Reign had on the field. And I think that's kind of how the game went. Gotham seemed like once they got through the nervousness, they understood the moment better. And their players played, I don't know how to say her name, Naswager. She was really good. I thought she was the best player. Yeah, I thought she was really good from start to finish. Like when all the nerves and everything was going on in the first 15, she was still really, really clinical, really good. And then here's a player, this is what we need to learn in the U.S. is this is a soccer player. She played left back in the final. And she's really an offensive midfielder, almost like a withdrawn striker type of a player. She's more of an attacking player. And I think that helped because she was able to find and slide and get up into the midfield and find pockets of space where nobody really knew who was supposed to mark her because she was coming out of the left back position basically all game. And then as the game went, it was close, but I don't think it was really ever – I never thought Gotham was going to lose once the game really kicked into the 70th minute and I know it was close as far as score-wise, but not until the end and the red card.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Again, what a crazy finish to a game. Go ahead.
So Mandy Hott stepped out. So I was on the other side of the field, right? Not listening to the broadcast. And I saw Mandy Hott step out, and it looked like she had fouled the defender inside the box, but she just put her hands outside of the box, which called.
Correct. Her feet never left the 18
area.
And she was always inside, but she reached her hands out, which it looks like she got caught in two minds. Okay, I'm going to come out, I'm going to head it. And then oh man, the ball checked up. Well, now she should have just ran through the ball with her chest and hope that she got fouled but you know, at the end of the day, it worked what she did, you know, but she did. She just reached her hands out. So now you're stopping a goal scoring chance. I don't know if it was, you could take a handball stopping a goal scoring chance or just a pure stopping of the goal scoring chance that gets her the red card. I think it's the right call. Once you see it on video, you're like, wait, yeah, she's like full reached out. She's a good 3 feet, her hands outside the box and gets her hands on the ball. And then, you know, I wasn't tracking subs, so I'm like, man, are they not going to sub a goalie in? And then you realize, holy cow, they have no more subs
Yeah.
left, and they have to. And then the player that goes in is a player that, you know, was trying to find time last year in the league. Now she's an offensive center mid starter. Then they put her in the goal. And I just thought, like, Gotham's story kind of seemed like it deserved the championship more than Seattle's story kind of did. But I thought it was, once the game settled down after the first 20, it was a good brand of soccer. And it was back and forth with momentum and stuff. And it was certain areas of the field, whichever team, when Seattle was good, they owned the middle of the field. When Gotham was good, they owned the flanks of the field. And they could do it. Gotham was able to do it more often than not than Seattle was able to do it with the middle of the field. But again, like at the end of the game, when they gave the MVP, usually you watch a game and you're like, oh, so-and-so's the MVP. And I got no problem with the MVP being Midge. She got 2 assists. She was a big part of the reason why they were able to get down those lines and get crosses in. But holy cow, was Krieger good. Was Krieger good, man. She was so good. I thought she was the MVP. I thought for she was.
Don't you think that would have been too much, though? Like, it's her last game. They made it so much about her. Then to give her the MVP would have been like,
you give it to her and she doesn't deserve it, yes. But I mean, she was everywhere. Like,
she was.
And I don't know that you would be able to see it where you were always standing, but I'm always getting this camera from up top, basically. Mm-hmm. She was just enjoying the game, turning around and laughing. I don't know if she was talking trash or she's like, this is amazing. I'm like for me is like, and I don't think she had that great of a year compared to what she did in that final. Like, I think she had a good year, but we could use her at the World Cup.
Yeah.
if after that game, and like I've now watched some stuff and like her speech before the game, I thought was amazing. She was like, it was all about team. It was not about her. She didn't say one thing like, let's do it for me, my last. It was like, we're going to be fine. We've had each other's back all year and we're going to do it again tonight. It was like, when she was talking, it was almost like, no, don't worry about the scoreboard. We can't lose. We've been through so much together as a team. We fought so hard for each other. We've become such a family.
Right.
Nothing can happen to us in this game. No, win or lose, that no one can take that. We know what we're going to bring to this game. We're going to bring a fight for each other. Like her speech, and I was like, I wanted to play. I wanted to get on the field and be like, oh, come on now. That's exactly the team I want to be on. Is no one cared about personal accolades. No one cared. It's her last game, and she was like, this is for us. This is for what we've accomplished. And it was like, I know she was talking to the players, but she was talking to management, ownership. Like, we're doing it. We're on the right path. We became a family. That's what makes champions. It's not just who has the best players. It's who cares the most about each other, understands each other, gets into a system, believes in the system, fights for the system. And that's what we got in that finals. That's the way it went down. But like I said, I thought she was so good that I would be, at least by today, trying to talk her out of retirement. And that's how good she was. I was like, what? She was like, I thought she was so good in that final. If they redid the Defender of the Year vote, she might have won it. And I got no problem with Germa winning it back to back. But she was so good in that game that, like, can you get your adrenaline that up for every single game? And I think she made a joke about it after. She said, if the money was right, somebody asked her after the game, if the money was right, I would think about coming back. Oh, but I can only play home games. And being a player that retired at an older age, man, that was the hardest thing, was living on the road. You're just never with your family. You're missing so many events. You can't do things with your wife. You can't do things with your children. And I think that's probably why she's stepping away, because it can't be because of her quality of play.
Yeah, no, I think too, like, she had made it really clear in media day and talking to all this different media saying like, I really want to be there for my kids. It's time to move on to the next thing. My kids are my priority. My family's my priority. And you're right, at that age, especially I think in what she's been able to accomplish and what we know she can accomplish off the field, rather that's in broadcasting or that's in anything off the field that we've seen her kind of dabble in, it makes sense to me, because you don't want to end on like a note where you are declining. And I agree. I think there was a little bit of, her playing in that match, her being just grateful for the moment, grateful to be in a championship game, to be in a position where she's healthy, she can play. And throughout media day, and I'll talk a little bit about my experience this past week, she kept talking about what she had been through this summer. And I didn't expect her to continue to reference the stuff that she had been through. And she just continued to reference it as like things that had happened this summer. But I'm sure that's been really tough on her, and having two really young kids and traveling as much as they do in the NWSL. She had said, they bring nannies on the road. They have a separate room for them. They have the ability to bring their kids and make it as easy as it can be. But I think this game was just for her to enjoy the moment. Her kids were not at the game. She wanted it to kind of be about herself in that moment. So I think for her, she couldn't have scripted any better. I was personally cheering for Gotham because I love Krieger's story and just kind of what she's been through, and kudos to her for how she went out. And I think too, we were talking about the team aspect, right? Like, it looks like the team was just enjoying the moment. I got to credit Juan Carlos Amaros, like, for him to come in and turn around this club, bring them to a championship, make big changes, make really small changes. You could see the energy, just like them calling themselves the Bats, and the teams really getting along together well. Like, Krieger said the leadership was the biggest change in what allowed them to be successful this year. So for me, like, Juan Carlos Amaros getting that Coach of the Year award, it was totally fair.
I also say this because I think I was really hard on Krieger early when she announced retirement. I said, I'm totally, listen,
Against
she
it.
can do it. She proved it.
Yeah.
She was mentally and she didn't just have retirement. She had a whole bunch of personal crap thrown out there too at the same time. And her
Right.
mental fortitude and care, and she didn't miss games. She played as hard as she could. I mean, I take it back. I'm still saying I don't agree with it,
Right.
but for her, she proved that she could do it. So until 80%, 90% of the people that ever do it prove what she's done, then I'm still going to be against it. But I will apologize to her. She had the character and the mental fortitude to be able to announce it and then not let it affect. And you know what? That's also me not knowing where's their contract talks. And she was like, I don't want this to be a problem. I'm just going to announce my. Who knows what really transpired for her to announce it early. But I will apologize to her for thinking that it was the wrong thing to do, because the way she did it, man, she handled her business. And I will tell you this, you're right. You don't know what's coming in her future. But if I'm Gotham, I am giving her a lucrative contract to stay with the club, because she is everything that you want your club to be. Just her attitude, her personality, her character, everything. She just seems in it for all the right reasons. So before somebody else can snatch her up, I'm going to make sure that I make her an offer that makes her want to stay with the club at Gotham in order to continue to build for the future. And who better to come to with questions and thoughts, and for either as players or upper management to come to a player who she died for this club. She's done everything she could for this club to make it right, to help it out. However long she was there for, this is somebody you don't want to lose.
Right. No, you don't. And I think she likes New York. It seems like she wants to make her life in that city. So congratulations to Krieger getting that championship win. On the other side, Megan Rapinoe went out in such a crazy way. The 6 minute goes down. There was no contact. I was right next to her, and I saw her initial impression on her face was like, I'm trying to get up, but I'm in a little bit of pain. I didn't think she was down for good. I thought it was something that she needed to come off, get fixed. Obviously, she goes out with the help of everyone around her, and she comes out in a boot, says she thinks she tore her Achilles. After that happened, for me, OL Reign was kind of out of it. I think for them, it was all about getting Rapinoe that win, being there for her. And when she comes off the field, it kind of let the air out of the balloon, so to speak, a little bit for them. And we just didn't really see the same team in a sense, because she's so much of that team. I was at practice the day before, and got to see a little bit of OL Reign train. And it was really interesting. Like at the end of the training, they all like celebrated Rapinoe, dogpiled her. Like you could just see how much they respect her, and that was sad to see her go out in that way. But I think she handled it like a professional. You just got to keep going. Things are gonna happen, and you can't like be upset about it. Rapinoe has a lot in the future for her, I'm sure, but that was very strange.
Yeah, it was hard to see because I guess it turns out it's her Achilles. She's
Right.
did her Achilles. But my thing with it was usually when players do their Achilles, it just pops. It's just a weird way they step or push off of it. Well, she slid. There was a little slide in her cleat. So it
Right.
was really hard. Like you were like, did she do her MCL? Did she do something to her knee? Did she pull a groin? Because you couldn't really
Well,
tell.
she touched her foot right after. Like she was touching her ankle.
Or her ankle, right? You don't know if she rolled it, like because usually when you slide or give like that, your cleats give in the grass. Yeah, you get injured, but not like a pop in your Achilles. Usually that Achilles, like we've seen them, like Brett Favre. It's just a weird step. Then we saw Kirk Cousins. Like it's a weird. No one slid and did it. She was like there was like a little chop comeback by whoever had the ball, and she tried to like defend it and got caught. And because she got caught and surprised, her foot slid out. And when it slid out, then she was down. And listen, I'm a New York Knicks fan, and I always don't like Michael Jordan. But I used to always think Michael Jordan, when he played the Knicks, he'd get hurt, and you'd be like, oh, God, he's doing it for the drama to make it look like it was a bigger game than he really had. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, is she doing this for the drama? Come on, get up and play. Let's go. And then you realize she's hurt, and you're like, damn, that sucks. That really does. But then you're right. Not only did they let the sail out, but I think Rapinoe was a big part of their game plan. Because if you can keep her high on her side, it keeps the defenders deeper. And once she was out, that's when Gotham said, well, let's attack. And let's attack on the right side, which is Rapinoe's left side. So like nobody was worried about getting attacked on that side. They weren't worried. So they started to press higher up on their side. And that allowed, correct. And she's not a bad player, but she's not like you're worried about her running the flank. Like she's not Lynn Williams. She's not these speedy dribbling type of player, crafty player. She gets in the box. She gets her head on the ball. She defends well from up top. She's one of your initial defenders. She does really good things. She's very valuable to a team. But now that changes the entire game plan because you can't feed balls out there to look for it. Usually she's getting on the end of crosses, and now you want her to cross balls. It's like that's not really her game. She was put in a tough spot, and then that allowed Gotham. They started to press on that side, press higher up the field. There's where the 2 assists come from on that side of the field. So I think you're right. It didn't just let the sails out. It also was like, oh crap, now
the game
what?
plan's over.
Now how are we gonna play? Like you almost needed to go to like this 4-4-2, change it up, clog the middle, make it sloppy, and grind our way through to a championship maybe. But we're not going to be able to be this free flowing, like, which was kind of what you were thinking the game was kind of maybe going to go like. And it did kind of go like that in the sense of there was spurts of momentum being taken by both teams, but never really, like I said, never was I ever thinking like, man, OL Reign's going to take this. It was always looked like Gotham's going to find a way. They're the better team for the majority of the game. They're doing the right things. And again, Krieger got in the back. She was everywhere. Like she was everywhere. Blocking balls, getting things, doing the right things over with talking trash so a throw-in couldn't be thrown in fast and like taking care of players, talking to players, communicating. She just like really into the game. And then, Gotham's got a great bench. You're just bringing in like just veteran players are just
Allie
coming
Long.
in.
I mean, they didn't even use Christy Mewis. They didn't even use Kelly O'Hara. There was a lot of players they didn't even have to use towards the end.
Right. You just knew like we could just just do the right things. Just do here we come, and they're good. And Yasmin Ryan is a dangerous that's a well-built team, a really well-built team of different characters, different styles that all mesh well together.
Yeah.
And that's we've been saying that since the World Cup. It's like we brought all the same players. Well, here's a team. They brought all these different types of players and got it to work really well. The Brazilian outside back is like special on the ball, man. She's never panicked. She's really good. Like she'll play out of tight spaces. She's calm. She's a good defender. She tackles well. I thought Gotham was, I thought they were deserving of the game.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Gotham played a complete playoff, really, and it was a really exciting week. And not only did we get to talk to the players at Media Day, Rapinoe kind of said a few nice things about Krieger back and forth. There was nobody who really stood out to me at Media Day outside of just like players. We kind of talked to them about non-soccer stuff just to pick their brain because we, as broadcasters, we don't really get to speak to these players often during the season. So in those moments, it's kind of fun to see like what are they into, what do they like to do. Christy Mewis said that her, Kelly O'Hara, and Lynn Williams have members to those city bikes in New York City, and they just bike around all day long, which I thought was kind of fun to see that relationship and hear about it a little bit more. Outside of Media Day, they had this skills challenge out where San Diego Wave train. And let me tell you, they train up in Del Mar. It is beautiful out there. Like the sun sets perfectly in this valley where they practice, and there's all these homes up on the hill. So they're kind of in this little surf park essentially, and that's where they held the skills challenge. They did like some tech ball competitions, some PK competitions. There was players from each team out there, and the part that was really funny to me was Crystal Dunn, like Ali Wagner was emceeing it, and she said, Crystal Dunn is up for free agency, and Dunn like took the mic and was like, I'm looking for a job, anyone have one? Anyone have one? And then Aubrey Kingsbury made a comment like, if I save this PK, will you come to the Spirit? And she saved the PK. So we put Crystal Dunn on the spot, and she didn't answer. But yeah, it was just really fun to see some of these players within their own personalities and kind of see, our favorite, Denise O'Sullivan, was there. And just see them kind of like have fun with each other, have fun with the fans, to see the fans show up. There was a lot of people there. And I think the league did a good job this year, not only with the media day, with their announcement of the new media rights deal, which is really exciting, but the skills challenge, the fan fest before the game, people showing up, and not just Gotham and Ola Rain fans, but obviously Angel City. We saw Wave fans. We really saw fans from across the league come out and support this game. So from a kind of being there to cover the event, I was really impressed.
I will say this: CBS must know something that we don't know, because they didn't just
What do you
get that
mean?
rights deal with the. They didn't just do NWSL. 2 days earlier, CBS announced that they have a USL
USL.
Championship and League One deal done. So, like, they know something that we don't know, that it is the USL going to. NWSL one seems to me to be an obvious choice, man. It's a great league. It has a great following. It has a great fan base. It's only going to get bigger as more teams come into the league. But to do the USL and USL Championship, that's telling me they know something that we don't know, because they're getting on in early. Is the USL going to promotion relegation, which would be amazing if you ask me, for soccer in America? I think it would teach the importance of every single game to players. I know we're going to talk a little bit about the MLS playoff stuff later, but I think promotion and relegation will drive a more competitive, not only league, but competitive player, which will help the future of the game in America. And I think CBS knows, hey, we got to get on this, because we want to have the good relationship in order to keep going forward with these leagues, because they're going to grow. They're going to become better. Just like we see what Messi's done with Apple and everything, because Apple wasn't as great as it is until Messi hit it in the MLS. So I think CBS is taking care of their business and doing the USL, which is not a terrible league. Either one of the leagues isn't that bad of soccer. And then the NWSL, which is and I think what's her face, Esther Gonzalez, I think she's made some good comments over the weekend saying, in Spain, don't get me wrong, La Liga is a great league. But unless you're playing Champions League or you're playing Barcelona, the games can be easy.
Yeah.
And here it's like you're playing a Champions League game, or a top game in your league every single game. She said every team is high quality. Yes, there's obviously discrepancies from top to bottom, but you could be the top team and lose to the bottom team, and it's not that big of a shock, because there's so many quality players on every single team. I think that was a real good. Now, that's what we said after the World Cup. We have this league. We need different types of players in order for it to grow and become even better. And I think that's what the league is starting to do also.
Yeah. I also think too, to go back to USL taking, or rather CBS taking on this USL deal, like look at what USL Super League wants to do. And now if NWSL and USL Super League are both airing on the same channel, and they're both, if USL Super League wants to compete for a Division 1 style of soccer. That to me is an extremely interesting take. And we haven't heard much about Super League since that announcement earlier this summer. But I don't know how that will look. But I agree. Like, CBS is taking every single soccer property here in the States and wants to be competitive. I mean, they've invested so much money into the Galazzo network, to covering Champions League, to having all these leagues, that they're trying to create this domination of soccer. And we have talked about it till we're blue in the face here. Like, we think soccer is only going to continue to grow. So CBS making that initial step is important. But we also can't leave out the other three people who've invested in NWSL. ESPN, which everyone knows who they are. We have Amazon, who's invested heavily in the NFL with Prime Nights on Thursday nights, which are extremely successful. They have the top talent sitting at the desk. They have the top talent in the booth. And then obviously Scripps, which I think is going to be really interesting. Typically, Scripps is traditional media. Like, when you're watching your local news channel, Scripps owns a lot of those types of stations. So they're making that move into sports. To me, there's something happening in network and all of this space that we don't know about. And I think it's all positive, especially for soccer. CBS was exciting, but to me, I think Amazon was the second most exciting, because just what they've been able to do with the NFL. They're clearly investing money. They have the money, so why not? And the next step to me, and what I'm going to be keeping my eye on, is the shoulder programming. Are we going to have the pre, post, and halftime shows to talk about the games? Are we going to have more than just one or two shows actually covering the NWSL and maybe even USL? So I think there's so much excitement happening, and in the next few months, we'll probably get our answers.
Yeah. I think it's cool, and you know how important your league is when you have different entities all able to and accepting to buy into a league. It's like ESPN, let's not fool ourselves, that's the Disney, that's ABC, and then CBS, well, they're not buddies. They're not
Right.
friends, but they're okay, you can have this part and we'll take this part, where usually it's like MLS in a sense is, here we go, Apple. Nobody else touch it. Like, ESPN's got to pay for any little snippet they get. They got to pay Apple for it. This is where these are different entities coming together to get a purchase of or rights to a single entity, which is the NWSL. And the NWSL is, in a sense, so powerful and so important right now, and has done such a good job, that these other ABC, CBS, Amazon are all willing to work together to get a piece of it, because we're realizing how important and how popular the sport is amongst the fans and the United States.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So, and this is something like we see it in NFL, like a lot of Fox, CBS, Amazon, ESPN, they all have different rights to the league, but soccer is so different. So this is something that is extremely exciting, and we'll continue to get more information on how things will play out heading into the season. Now, with U.S. women's national team, it's been announced Emma Hayes will be the new head coach, coming over from Chelsea, where she will finish out the WSL season. She is going to be the highest paid women's coach, really competing with what Greg Berhalter is making on the U.S. men's national team side. Initial thoughts before we dive into some of the specifics of what this will look like when Hayes takes over.
First, why is she not making more than Berhalter?
Good
Her
question.
resume's better. Her resume's better. She's what, been the coach of the year 6 times in England. She has won it 5 times. She's won the FA Cup, or maybe she's won it 6 times, won the
6
FA
times.
Cup 5 times. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she's got an unbelievable, like, she's amazing. Like, her players, like, when listen to her players talk about her, and how much they love her and how much she's helped their game become even that much more prolific. So my thing is, like, I'm so happy that she's making as much money as she is, but why wouldn't she be making more than Berhalter? He's, like, he saved the team from relegation once. One time he didn't save a team from relegation. He did exactly what everybody else was doing, basically. When Klinsmann got fired, whatever his record was, when Berhalter got to that many games, his record was exactly the same as Klinsmann's. I mean, he hasn't really done anything that we haven't seen already. So for me, is she should get paid, and she should be paid more than him, because she's more qualified, and what we need is exactly what they're bringing in, and that who she is. My thing is, for her, she did during the World Cup, she kind of ripped the United States and what they were and what they needed to do and what they needed to become. So for me now is, okay, now you're in the position to do it. Are you going to follow through with it? Old players need to go. New players need to come in. A style of play that fits everybody needs to be set. I totally think she's the person to do it. For me, the other interesting fact is the Federation is very leery of hiring outside of their little group. And I understand that Crocker's new, but let's not be fooled. There's a board at the Federation that makes a lot of the decisions. It's not just, Matt Crocker. He'll be the fall guy, and maybe some of it is on his head and shoulders. And I understand that. But they are now stepping outside of their normal realm and hiring outside, basically. And I understand that she was here for 3 years or whatever and coached in the U.S. for a little bit in college and stuff. But this is somebody that is known as an English coach from England that they're going to bring in with different ideas and different thoughts and ways of running a federation than the U.S.
The question is, though, like, are they going to allow Emma Hayes to do exactly what she wants to do? Because of all these coaches we had speculated coming in and taking over this role, she's one who wants control, who's extremely outspoken, and who is successful doing what she wants to do. With this U.S. women's national team, what we saw at the World Cup, there was a lot of question marks on what is really happening behind the scenes. Like, no BS. Emma Hayes is no BS. Like, the U.S. knows that. Now, are we going to see that be applied?
So for me, and again, this is looking into the future, this is exactly what I thought needed to happen when the men did not qualify. They needed to hire a coach and bring a coach in who didn't care about the federation, who didn't care what they said to them. You hired me? Great. You don't like the way I do it? Fire me.
Right.
But this is my way, and you hired me to do a job, and I have to do it my way, or there's no chance of it succeeding. And I think with Emma Hayes, they hired the correct person. I don't think she's going to care what they tell her. She knows she's successful. She is one of those coaches who has, if she comes in and does terrible, her next job is going to be great. So she had one bad stint because everywhere else she's been a proven winner. So, I don't think she's worried, I have to do good because then it feeds my next one and my next one. She could close to being retired and still go down as one of the greatest coaches of all time. So I don't think she's worried about what the federation and other people, this is how I do it. This is how I run my thing. This is how I'm going to do it. And I think you can already almost see that she doesn't care because before we hired anybody, they were adamant that they wanted a coach that when they hired him was going to come straight in. Well, she ain't coming to May. She said, you want me? This is what it's going to take to get me out of Chelsea. And I'm not leaving until I fulfill my commitment to this club and these players. And that's not what the U.S. wanted. And I think that was the biggest delay because they wanted someone to come right in and take it over. And she said, it's not going to be me then because I have to finish this. I have made a commitment. I have a contract. When this is over, then yes, I will step away. But if that's got a problem with that, then don't hire me. No big deal. No big deal. No big deal. And I think that's the start of she's going to do it her way. And if people don't like it, she don't really care.
Right. And I also think in so many ways that's fair and true because if Emma or Hayes gets fired by the federation because they're not happy with what she's doing or they're not listening, she's not listening to them, she can go out and probably get that Chelsea job back or really any job back. And I'm not saying that's probably not going to happen, but I think that is a justified option for her. And the whole thing coming in May, the Summer Olympics start on July 26th. Emma Hayes not coming until May, which is roughly 2 months before they go to Paris, is a little bit concerning in the sense of how are they going to perform at the Olympics? But we got to think big picture, U.S. women's national team. What does their future look like? Who are they building to be? With what they did in the World Cup, who cares what they're doing in the Olympics, so to speak? There has to be
I agree.
the shift of the guard. We have to see some of these old folks leave and some of these new folks really be brought in and be taken seriously to be brought in, like the Jaden Shaw, the Mia Fishel, even Ashley Hatch or Sam Coffey come in and be an actual big piece of the team and leave off of the Christy Mewis's, and maybe it's time for Alex Morgan to kind of be done with this team.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the last World Cup, we all talked about, well, we're bringing so and so and so and so and so and so and so because we need leadership. Well, we
Yeah.
have a leader now. We have a leader. It's Emma Hayes. Emma Hayes is the leader. She will lead us, and then she'll find her own leaders and help them become better leaders on the field. And I totally agree with you. Of course, we want to win the Olympics. Don't get it wrong. Don't think we're saying something different, but
Oh,
this is
right.
big picture. This is if we have to lose or do in the Olympics to win the next 8 huge tournaments, then that's what we have to do.
Mhm.
And if that's we needed to get Emma Hayes. I think this is a great signing. I really do. I think she's going to change the landscape of US soccer, and I think she's going to have to dive into it, which I think she'd probably be willing to do because it seems like she just loves the game. It's going to go back to our youth academies and stuff, and the way that's being taken care of and the way that's being done and the way her teams are going to. You want to make the national team? Well, this is what we need to be teaching at this level because these are the type of players we're looking for. And this is what we want. I train a girl, and she's on an academy team here for the ECNL for the club local here, and she just did her eval. And the coach told her, "This is the academy. This is the top of the top. We don't want to be teaching team play. You guys got to be hungry and killers." And it was all about you as an individual and do whatever it takes for you as an individual. And I was like, that is such terrible, terrible advice. Like, you do have to do what's best for you in the sense of your training and your work, but this is a team sport. And you have to learn how to become a great teammate. And you have to learn what your role is on every team. That's defined a lot by your skill, but also the skill that surrounds you. And I think that's when we looked at the World Cup, that eval is exactly what we saw. So I don't think it's just here in North Carolina. I think that's at other clubs. Is like they're just trying to produce Division One or pro players to say that they did it, but
Mhm.
not look at like Gotham won because they were the better team, not necessarily because they had the better talent. Now, that's not to say they didn't have better talent or great talent, but they knew how to do it as a team, as a family, as a unit, all working for one common goal. And I think that was obvious as the game went on. It was obvious from the start to the finish. And that's great. Seattle was really good at it too, I think, better than the teams that they had knocked out. But when we're developing players, we have to develop players that understand that they play a team sport and the team comes first no matter what. But it's hard when youth coaches are teaching completely the wrong way because we have the talent. Like, we just named a whole bunch of young players. Alyssa Thompson, Jaden Shaw, Official. Like, we have tons and tons and tons of talent coming through the pipelines. But if they're being taught to just be an individual and only care about themselves and their own personal accolades, you can't win anything. You can't
Right.
you can do well up until it gets to holy cow. Now we're playing against competition just as talented as us, but they know how to play with each other. And I think Holland, we're better than Holland individually, but they were the better team. That's why the tie happened. Because
Yeah.
we are still really good individually, we're just not a great team. Everybody does their own thing and it doesn't mix and mesh and fit well together. And that's what, great teams, the Real Madrids, the Barcelonas, the Man Cities, they got a whole bunch of great superstars, but they play unbelievably well together and they do what's right for the team, not what's right for them.
Yeah, no, and Emma Hayes is a coach who I can see, like, wanting to build for the future and wanting to build some of the youth, and to your point, going down to the youth and making sure that's being done correctly. And Emma Hayes is at Chelsea this year. She will be coaching this season for that side. So something we'll be keeping an eye on because she's been known to change formations. She's okay. Like, she can coach so many different styles of soccer that I think that bodes so well for us here in the States because we don't know our best style of soccer yet, especially with some of these new young guns. Like, we don't know what makes them good together. Individually on their clubs, their systems for the most part fit them really well. But watching her bring them in together will be really fun. So this Summer Olympics is something that we'll be keeping our eye on. MLS is in the middle of playoffs, and we will not see the championship game until December 9th. It has been a very long playoffs, and the NWSL was short. It was sweet. It was exciting. It was to the point, and here we are with the champion. And now a ton of other things happening, which you can't always script that. But for MLS, you really can script how the playoffs play out. What can MLS learn from what the NWSL has been able to do this year with their postseason?
I mean, you were on the edge of your seat. And that's with an international break thrown in there for the NWSL playoffs. Remember, we had an international
The
break. We had a
World
week
Cup.
off, and we were still like and the World Cup. But everything that the NWSL, kept us going, kept us looking forward to it. The NWSL is in my opinion, the closest thing we have to the NFL. The NFL keeps you interested 12 months out of the year, and they only play 4. So for 8 months, they got you. They keep you in it. They keep you on the edge of your seat. There's stuff's being made. There's moves being made. There's new rules. There's league meetings. There's so many things that we're captivated by. The MLS, we're only out of the first round. Like it's ridiculous.
I know.
Then we got to do another couple rounds. It's like it's so long. Like the only people who care about the MLS right now are the teams that are still left. Nobody else cares. No, St. Louis, they're already talking about what they're going to do next year. They're not even watching. I bet you they're like, yeah, I'm sure they're going to turn the game on. You're in the league, but
Make a
it's
tweet.
like I'm bored by it. I'm like
Yeah.
I'm already look the Bay Area already made a trade with Orlando. Exciting news. Like there's things that you're looking already to the horizon for what's coming in the NWSL. There's going to be all these trades and things are going to happen, and there's free agents, and there's some big free agents already. And then there's you're going to be watching. Caroline's the MVP. I think she's the most deserving player.
No, wait. We need to talk about this. Let's pause.
This is what I will say of the people that were up for the MVP. Her team overachieved the most.
But what does that have to do with Caroline individually?
Because I think when we look at the MVP, I think we get fooled sometimes by it just being stats. Like I think when we take Caroline off the courage, is anyone worried about the courage?
Yes, I think so.
You're worried that who's the courage going to beat?
Without Caroline, they
Without
did it during the
Caroline.
World Cup.
Yeah, but a lot of teams didn't have players. So it wasn't like I'm saying Gotham got courage in North Carolina without Caroline. I think that was a huge part of the game. You can go on the attack against the courage if Caroline's not playing. If you go on the attack and Caroline's playing, man, I think you're in trouble. I thought she was the most deserving of the people that were up for it.
Let's talk about who was up for it. Sam Coffey in Portland, Dabinia in Kansas City, Naomi Girma in San Diego, and Sophia Smith in Portland. Sam Coffey, no, in Portland. I don't think she was MVP of the league. Dabinia in Kansas City, they extremely underperformed, not player of the league. Naomi Girma, no. Sophia Smith competes for me. What she was able to do when she came back from the World Cup to get Portland into it. And this is disregarding, this award was announced before the championship game. So it wasn't, doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with the entire season. You got to leave the World Cup out of it. Sophia Smith has nothing to do with the World Cup. I just think league play, she had 11 goals this season. Caroline had 10. To me, I'm not saying Caroline shouldn't have been involved in the conversation, but this one was really shocking to me.
Oh, see, not to me. So Sophia Smith's on a team that also has another player that's up for the MVP. And rightfully so, I think, in the mix. So she also has Sinclair. She also has, and granted she was hurt, Sauerbraun. She also has Weaver. She also, Carolina has O'Sullivan. First, I don't think Kurt should have been up for Defender of the Year. I don't even think she should have been in the conversation, but she was, but whatever. That's what I'm saying. Carolina is a bunch of role players and Caroline, which makes them, holy cow, dangerous. Okay. Portland is a machine. It is a machine. You know what I mean? Okay, take Sinclair out, throw Moultrie in there. Okay, take so-and-so out, throw her in there.
Not Sophia Smith, though. You don't take Sophia Smith out and just throw someone in there. And she proved that.
I'm not saying that you're going to get Sophia Smith. I don't think you're going to get Sophia Smith, but I think you're going to stay more consistent to your style of play than if you lose Caroline in North Carolina. Caroline, and I understand what you're saying, she is like an enigma. She's out there. The team's doing this, and everybody's doing this, and then give it to Caroline. Well, because of that, she keeps teams at bay. They're afraid if you just release her and let her be free, she's like in the realms of Messi. Like, you can never send your back four forward, because if you do, and it's 1-2, Caroline again, I'm taking Caroline. I'm
Okay.
taking
Yeah.
Caroline.
No.
And I understand Sophia Smith is similar to that player, and I would love to see switch the two, switch them. I would love to see that, because we really don't know what's going to happen. But I think Caroline at times can be more dangerous as a central player, and if she's allowed to get lost and float kind of. And can Sophia Smith go and be effective on the outside, which I think she could at Carolina. But I think I would love to see them on both teams. Okay, take each player and switch them and see what but that's mine is like, I think Portland, and I know they came in second, I think they underachieved.
Oh,
I
for sure.
did. I think
Wait, what
that's what
if?
I'm saying. The Courage is the one team of all the players whose team overachieved. I think San Diego did what we thought San Diego would do. They got a ridiculous team.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I agree with all of that. But what if, for a second, hear me out. There was a lot of rumors that Caroline was moving over to Manchester United. What if the league gave her this MVP award to keep her here in the NWSL? That to me would make more sense than her winning the award because she deserved the award because of her season.
No, being a player that's played through the United States systems, I wouldn't know that they were doing it to keep her or to raise her price. Because remember, the Courage don't own Caroline.
Right.
The league does.
Sure. That's fair.
So if Man U now comes and wants Caroline, they're not playing the Courage. They're paying the NWSL. So now you're like going to say, hey, Man U, you want her? She's our MVP. So remember when we were talking about it after the World Cup and it was 300 grand? Well, that's doubled.
Yeah, that's
So
what
if
I'm
you want
saying.
her,
That would
that's
make
doubled.
sense.
I totally agree. I understand that. I'm not saying I wouldn't doubt that either, but I'm still saying, for me, I think she was the most valuable player to her team for them to do what she did, for what that team did.
I'm thinking about every single team in the league. Nobody in Kansas City, to me, deserved an MVP. Nobody in
No, they underachieved the worst.
Yeah, they did. Let's hold on for 1 second. Humor me. Let's look at the NWSL. So we've got Kansas City, nobody's on the board for that. Chicago, no one's on the board for that. Houston, nobody's on the board for that. Racing, you could put DeMello in the mix, but I don't think there's a winner there. Washington,
Too bad of a season, like ups and downs.
yeah. Washington, I don't think a defender would ever win MVP of the league, but Sam Staub is just so consistent for me there that one's hard to overlook. Orlando, no. I mean, no, I think Emily Madrill, again, was one of their better players. Gotham, Jenna Neiswanger, but she won Rookie of the Year. Angel City, nobody at Angel City. OL Reign, no, because Rose Lavelle barely played this season. North Carolina, I guess Caroline is our option there. Portland, Sophia Smith. I mean, you could put Morgan Weaver in there, like what she was able to overcome. To me, I don't know. And we'll lay this one to rest. We'll agree to disagree. But I just think there were better options. And I think what I said about the league competing for Caroline would make sense. Not that I don't think Caroline didn't play well for North Carolina this year. I just was shocked, to be honest.
I also think not only do teams defend and set their game plan for Caroline, I'm pretty sure they set their game plan in North Carolina for Caroline.
Yeah, but don't you think a lot of teams in the league do that? Like, there's other teams in the Portland. Oh, it's always
like Portland to me is like at the end of the year. And granted, she's coming back from an injury. And I don't think missing games had anything to do with Sophia Smith not getting it, me personally. I don't think that really mattered. But they don't play, they finish with her. And she does closer to goal. I think Caroline gets it more around midfield and then makes these runs and attacks. And here, and then this is going to bother people. For me, Sophia Smith is Holland. Yes, she's got the goals. And yes, she's got the stats. And she's amazing. But Messi was the player of the year. because of what he does for his team. He doesn't just put the ball in the back of the net. She is a focal point of how they attack.
Yeah.
Sophia
Okay.
Smith, they attack with Weaver. They attack with Dunn. They attack with Sinclair. And Sophia Smith is a great player who benefits from all those other players. Caroline is not benefiting from O'Sullivan's amazing work in the midfield as far as her attacking prowess.
Yeah.
They keep the ball, they knock the ball, they do these things, and then Caroline gets it, and everybody stands up, and everybody's like, "Oh, here we go!" And it's not always. I think Caroline's a bit selfish. She could have had more assists if she would have played the ball across. That's a forwards mentality. That's not my mentality. So I always feel like that with certain forwards. But that's in my looking at it is like, if I could pick the two players off of this year, man, I picked Caroline because I can then completely change the way I build the team around her in a sense.
Yeah, no, I see that, and I see it from that aspect. And I, like you said earlier, I would love to see Sophia Smith play for North Carolina and Caroline play for Portland and see how that would change the dynamics. And to be honest, Scotty, like we're coming up on this expansion draft here next month. We might see some crazy stuff. I don't see Sophia Smith leaving or Caroline leaving North Carolina necessarily, but there are going to be changes, and that's what we should do is break down different swaps and see how we think that will play out or how different managers will use their players in different positions. So just an idea for another show. Before we end the show though, NWSL's wrapped up. We're in MLS playoff position. We've got some friendlies headed up for the national team. What are you watching now that soccer in the States is on a very small hiatus, but we do have more time to tune into other stuff?
Well, I'm in North Carolina, so I'll be watching all the NCAA basketball. I love basketball. I love the Knicks, but I'll be watching. Liverpool's in the title race, so obviously I'll watch
Yep.
the EPL religiously until it's over, and then I'll just dive into all the sports that come. You know, I live here in
Any
North Carolina.
documentaries?
For me, I'm not a
Yeah, you
big
watch that?
documentary
Okay.
kind of. I watched the Beckham one. I liked it. I remember a lot of it because he's similar. I'm a little older, but he's similar to my age. So, like, as pros, we're all going through. We're all
Yeah.
watching each other's careers and stuff. So I remember a whole bunch of all of that. Um, but for it's just I'm always sports. I'm always just watching the different because I think they all translate to each other, like the dynamics and um like right now in the NFL, a lot of these receivers are upset. And I think some of them are upset because they don't make catches or don't get targets. And then some are upset because they're losing. So, like, I watch the different mental dynamics of somebody just wants to be on a winning team. Somebody doesn't care about being on a winning team. They just want personal stats. And like, you see that in the game of soccer. You see that in the game of basketball. You see it all over the place. And I just like watching the different dynamics. But I love watching the college because half the team can go pro and half of them know that they're not going pro. And I think that's cool how they interact and work and help each other achieve their goals post
Yeah.
NCAA play. And I think that's why I like the NCAA. So I'll be watching all that. But again, like I said, it's like the NFL, the NWSL. You're right. We got
Same.
free agency. We got big free agents. We got expansion teams coming in, which means there's an expansion draft. Then there's a draft. There's really good college players floating around coming out. Are any more of these high school players going to bypass college? Like, there's so much on the horizon for the NWSL that I'll be watching that constantly throughout the year, waiting for it to come back, just like I do with the EPL, just like I do with the NFL.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's plenty of happening in the NWSL. Definitely keeping my eyes on all the moves and what this expansion draft is going to look like. I need to get back into reading, to be honest. And on my flight out to California, I'm reading Educated, and it is an amazing book. It's about this woman who was raised in this like uber religious family. I think they were kind of Mormon, and they lived off the grid in Utah or some random state, and how she kind of came out of that and became educated. So that's a great read if anybody's looking for a good book right now. And any soccer books anyone's been reading, please drop it in the comments. I would love to hear what other people have read. I need to do that. I need to watch the David Beckham documentary. I have not finished it. I need to go to the Eras Tour movie and watch this movie. I heard people say it was better than the actual concert. I have to see that. The Steelers are playing well, and they got a win against Green Bay this past week, so I'll take it. I'm finishing the NFL, obviously Premier League, following Champions League stuff, women's and men's. I mean, the soccer doesn't stop, but it does give you a little bit of time to dive into other stuff. Do you read, Scotty? You got any good book Rex?
I mean, I've read good books, but I'm not a big reader, so
I
like buy
know.
stuff that most people read just to make sure I didn't miss anything. I actually read recently. I read To Kill a Mockingbird just because Emmy was doing it for school last year, so I
It's a
read
good
that
one.
again. Yeah, it's a great book.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big reader. I mean, I
It's
just
tough.
I just like watching sports. I
Well,
just
that's
like
the thing
watching
that's
sports.
hard is like reading puts me to sleep. And then by the end of the day, there's plenty of sports that I need to catch up on. So I end up prioritizing watching sports over reading a book when really I should spend like 10 minutes every single night reading a book to put myself to sleep. But, so that's why Educated's good. This book behind me, The Club, I started it. It's really interesting, kind of like the behind the scenes of like the English Premier League. There's media rights deals and kind of hearing how the league got to where it has to be. It's one of those books, though, you have to take your time reading it because it's just like constant information. Um, it's by Joshua Robinson and Jonathan Clegg. If no one's read that book, that's a good one as well.
I'll
And
say
yeah,
this. I will say this. I don't even know how I found it. It was probably like a year, maybe 2 years ago. There's something on the BBC channel, but it shows the rise of English soccer and how it was awesome, and how the clubs fought against each other and then they became united, and then they got sponsorship, and how it grew and they were making money. And I thought that was, but I can't remember what exactly the name, but it was through the BBC network. I
okay,
know that. And it was about the, not just the premiership, but like English soccer, like how it all started back in
yeah,
the day. And I was really, really, I
I'll
thought
have
it
to
was
look
really
into that.
interesting and cool.
I will say that before I forget to tell this, because I worked with Football Co, Goal and Indivisa. I encourage people to follow those in social media sites because they do a great job of covering the game. But there are a bunch of people from the UK, and when they came over, I got dinner with them after the final, and all they continued to talk about was how amazing the event was. They were like, the food, the beer, the selections of drinks, how we could sit in our seats and drink and actually watch the game. Obviously, the weather in California allows for so much that the weather in the UK doesn't allow. But I didn't know in the Premier League, you couldn't take your drinks to your seats. They only serve at halftime
Yeah, you know why, right?
because they're insane. They would chuck it at everyone.
Well, they used to let it happen a long time ago, and there would be massive fights in the
Yeah.
stands, massive, massive fights. So they took the alcohol away, and that solved a lot of problems. But like recently, one of our players that we coach went over to Spain, and he came back, and his first thing he said to me, he's like, "Coach, there is a fence in the middle of the stands that come up," and I said, "Yeah, it's the block, so the fans can't get at each other."
It's insane.
Because they don't need to be, they're such rivals. Like if Barcelona and Real Madrid play, the fans will try to fight, alcohol or no alcohol. Boca Juniors, River Plate, they have a big, huge fence that's like impossible to climb. It's so high just to separate the fans. So yeah, in England, you just go there and watch the game.
Well,
So like knowing that you can't drink, you watch them, and like they know they got it timed out perfect. They walk straight in, they watch the game, they walk straight out. Like, and then they're still unbelievable atmosphere, and they're
it
cheering, and they're
is.
singing, all their songs and everything. But I could see like that's the American way. It's not just the game; it has to be an event. It
Right.
has to be, and like the teams that can do that in any sport, man. And
They
that's
win.
like you look at some of these NFL stadiums, is like you're in a nightclub and a football game broke out. Like you can stand at the bar, you can see it, you can watch it, like you got a perfect view. Oh, don't worry if you don't have the perfect view or you want to go inside. There's 400 TVs. They're
Yeah.
all 70-inch
You never miss
screens.
anything. Well, it was funny
Yeah, so
too, like, they were talking specifically about the women's game and just seeing, like, the WSL and the experience of the WSL compared to this championship game, and just, like, the amount of fans who were not just fans showing up to watch a game Saturday night on a beautiful evening, but people who actually knew the league. Like, they hammered it home, man. They, like, just continued to talk about it. I thought it was great. But then, obviously, I had to ask them about the NFL in the UK and how that's been going. And they're like, it's all right. We feel like we don't get the players best because, like they're coming overseas, they're jet lagged. But I saw this thing on TikTok the other day that I thought was so funny. They played Sweet Caroline in the stadium, and you're not allowed to cheer over a drive or over a play if you're a fan of a team. And they kept singing Sweet Caroline over their team and over their quarterback trying to call a play. Like, these guys don't know how to cheer. They're just used to the constant chaos in football and soccer. So the dichotomy and just the countries and the sports, I love it. I thought it was funny. And I also love too, my final thought on just this championship game, and we'll wrap up the show. I love how universal the sport of soccer or football is. Like, the fact that I was hanging out with people from the UK who I would have no other reason to hang out with, and we knew so much of the same stuff, the same peoples, the players, like we had the same language that I wouldn't be able to have if I was here covering the NFL or maybe the NBA to an extent. So that's, like, honestly my favorite thing about the sport is the culture of it and how you can get along with so many other people because everyone loves it.
Yeah, it is real. And I think that sometimes we miss that, how special the sport is.
Yeah,
As
totally.
players, as coaches, as fans, it's like, it is like, just think of like the World Cup hits and like, it's amazing. It's just amazing to watch the fans cheer for their country, but also they're in the stands and then they pick, oh, let's cheer for Japan today. And then the Colombian
Yeah.
fans start cheering for Japan. And you're like, it's a really cool how it brings everyone together. And even like, listen, I'm a Liverpool fan and I deal with a lot of children. So they all, come on, let's be honest, they're front runners. So they're all Man City fans. But
Yeah.
like the banter that you can have with somebody also, and it doesn't go overboard. Whereas sometimes in the US, don't go out west and mess around with the 49er fans, or because you never know what's going to happen in the stands.
Right.
But
But
like I
it's
feel
never
like
like the UK though. Like, I don't think NFL stadiums would ever compete with like what we see in the Premier League fandom wise.
so I've been to a few stadiums in Europe, and I like the small little, like, I don't want to be Luton Town, but like I've been to Stamford Bridge, and it's like when you come into Stamford Bridge, you're like, did I just enter a castle? And then you come through these gates and everything, you're in there, and you're like, wow, this is awesome. Whereas Manchester United Stadium to me is too big. It's like a football stadium. They have a parking lot. It's like I didn't like it, but like I've been to Queens Park Rangers, I've been to Burnley, I've been to just different stadiums, and I like the small. I've been to Brest, I've been to Gangon Stadium, I've been to Saint-Brieuc Stadium in France, and like there's just different stadiums. You're just like,
Yeah.
wow, it's so like I've never been to Anfield, which I would love to go because I'm a Liverpool fan, or Cottage Craven's Cottage for Fulham. It's just a cool stadium that you're like you're there, you're a
But
part of
I'm
it.
talking
You're
about the
looking forward to seeing
fans.
this.
The fans though, like the excitement of it, like I don't think NFL fans are going to be chucking beers well, we've seen people get murdered in NFL stadiums, but you know what I mean? Like, overall, we don't see what the Premier League, the excitement to me that some of these NFL fans bring. And I'm a huge NFL
Yeah,
fan.
I think the premiership for sure is the history. So like even if I'm 7 years old, I'm being taught the history by my grandfather, my father, my mother, my grandmother. Like we know all the songs, we blah blah blah. I was telling Kirsten, I forget what game I was watching. It was a Champions League game, and they had the kids walk out, with the teams. So
Yeah.
you wear the home team normally. You have to wear the home teams. And as it got to the one kid, he opened up his shirt and he went like this, and he was a fan of the other team, but he had to do it on TV. He was like I wanted to come on the
Amazing.
field, but not with these guys. I thought it was really cool. Just like the history that about your team and how much they love it, and like you see the fans. Like my favorite time of year is the end of the year in the EPL, just because they show you the most important games point wise. So sometimes you get a 1-2 game, and sometimes you get that 19-20 game. But like when you see a team get relegated, like the tears, like it's everybody in
Yeah.
the stands is crying, and they're saying like 80 years old to 2 years old, they're all upset and they're crying. Or if they stay up and they don't go down, or they get promoted, like thank God for Ryan Reynolds and everything, because he gave us a glimpse into what it is to get promoted.
Right.
Like, and the American fans got to see that. And I don't think they understood what it meant to be like, we're going up. We're getting an increase in money from the league, which means we can get better players, which means we can get a better stadium, which means we can play against better teams. Just everything that goes into it. We don't have that here.
No, we
Pittsburgh
don't.
could lose every game. The Bears could lose every game. They'll be in the league next
I
year.
know, it's
Great.
crazy. That's what they were saying. That's what they were saying in the UK, though, is like you would never see, the worst team in the Premier League be able to draft, so to speak, Kylian Mbappe the next year. Like the chaos.
Right.
Like that, he's like, that does not compute in my brain. And I was like, welcome to America.
Right.
No, it's awesome. And I think that's something that we can like never lose about this sport is just how much we can relate with other people all over the world, not just the UK and Europe, just people everywhere. This show's one a few extra minutes long, but I felt like that was a reason to finish and a great way to finish the show this week. So we'll be back next week. We'll talk about what's happening in the MLS and NWSL. Plenty of action happening in both of our national teams. Make sure to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and you can watch us on YouTube every single week. It's at SFTP Pod, and we will be back next Wednesday or Thursday. Probably Wednesday, but stay tuned.
Have a great week.